Chapter 12, verse 22 is we're in the Book of Nehemiah. I think that's where I left off before I was so rudely interrupted by some maniac driving insanely fast down the highway off over here and being chased by cops. Say a quick prayer for that knucklehead. But anyways, verse 22, golly, the things that happen. The Levites in the days of Eliashib, Joiada and Johanan and Jaddua were recorded chief of the fathers, also the priests through the reign of Darius the Persian. The sons of Levi, the chief of the fathers, were written in the book of Chronicles even until the days of Johanan the son of Eliashib. And the chief of the Levites, Hashabiah, Sherebiah, and Jeshua the son of Kadmiel, with their brethren over against them to praise and to give thanks, according to the commandment of David, the man of God, ward over against ward. Verse 25, Mattaniah and Bakbukai, Obadiah, Meshullam, Telmon, Akub, they were porters, keepers, keeping the ward at the thresholds of the gate. These were in the days of Joachim, the son of Jeshua, the son of Jozadak, and in the days of Nehemiah the governor, and of Ezra the priest, the scribe. Notes. Well, the first 26 verses of this chapter are very important, not only as they relate to the spiritual facts, which we addressed in verse 1, but also because these they secured the purity of the pedigree of the Aaronic priesthood. Since the nation was no longer governed by kings, the high priest marked the chronology of the people up to the advent of the very Messiah. So, in other words, I've been saying this long list of names to keep track of genealogies, and you can do your own private study on that. But these were very, very prized, and they were very, very important because they could trace their roots back to people who were legends among them. Okay. Not only that, they remembered Abraham's agreement with God and the promise that through him would come the Messiah. So it was a very, very extremely important thing. It was so important that the devil on multiple occasions sent his fallen angels to come and try to corrupt these seed lines. So they were very, very important because if you don't have any Jews around, you can't have a Jesus. Okay, it just kind of makes sense right there. And it would also make God into a liar, which of course failed miserably at that. We had a flood there and some other things happened, but anyways, verse 27. And at the dedication of the wall of Jerusalem, they sought the Levites out of all their places to bring them to Jerusalem, to keep the dedication with gladness, both with thanksgivings, and with singing, with cymbals, psalteries, and with harps. And the sons of the singers gathered themselves together, both out of the plain country round about Jerusalem, and from the villages of Netophathi. Also from the house of Gilgal, and out of the fields of Geba and Asmaveth, for the singers had built them villages round about Jerusalem. Verse 30. And the priests and the Levites purified themselves, and purified the people and the gates and the wall. Then I brought up the princes of Judah upon the wall, and appointed 2 great companies of them that gave thanks, whereof one went on the right hand upon the wall toward the dung gate. Notes. Well, the wall having been completed and now dedicated, well, the entire praise for its erection was given to God and none of the builders. The whole multitude was parted into 2 companies, headed by a choir. Each company moved one to the right and one to the left to make, with sounding of cymbals and of song, the half circuit respectively, okay, and of the wall. Well, the dual march was so planned that the 2 companies met again upon the wall opposite the temple, even as we shall see in the next couple of verses. Verse 32. And after them went Hoshea and half of the princes of Judah, and Azariah, Ezra, and Meshullam, Judah and Benjamin, and Shemaiah and Jeremiah, and certain of the priests' sons, with trumpets, namely Zechariah the son of Jonathan, the son of Shemaiah, the son of Mattaniah, the son of Micaiah, the son of Zachar, and the son of Asaph. And his brethren Shemaiah and Azareel, Milalai, Gilalai, Mai, Nethaneel, and Judah, Hanani, they were the musical instruments of David the man of God, and Ezra the scribe before them. Verse 37, got to clear my throat there. And at the fountain gate, which was over against them, they went up by the stairs of the city of David, and the going up of the wall above the house of David, even unto the water gate eastward. And the other company of them that gathered thanks went over against them, and I after them, and the half of the people upon the wall, from beyond the tower of the furnaces, even unto the broad wall. Verse 39. And from above the gate of Ephraim, and above the old gate, and above the fish gate, and the tower of Hananeel, and the tower of Mia, even unto the sheep gate, and they stood still in the prison gate. So stood the two companies of them that gave thanks in the house of God, and I and the half of the rulers with me. And the priest Eliakim, Maaseiah, Mini-Aman, Micaiah, Elionai, Zechariah, and Hananiah with trumpets. And Maaseiah, and Shemaiah, and Eleazar, and Uzi, and Jehohanan, and Malchijah, and Elam, and Ezer. And the singers sang loud with Jezariah, their overseer. Verse 43. Also that day they offered great sacrifices and rejoiced, for God had made them rejoice with great joy. And the wives also and the children rejoiced, so that the joy of Jerusalem was heard even afar off. Notes. The united choir sang aloud while the priest offered sacrifices, so everyone was rejoicing, even little children, okay? One might say, without the fear of contradiction, this was a camp meeting, if you will, like you see on TV, on TBN, okay? And, well, rightly so. They had plenty to celebrate, plenty to be happy about, and plenty of reasons to praise God. Verse 44. And at that time were some appointed over the chambers for the treasures, for the offerings, for the firstfruits, and for the tithes, to gather into them out of the fields of the cities the portions of the law for the priests and Levites. For Judah rejoiced for the priests and for the Levites who waited. And both the singers and the porters kept the word of their God and the word of the purification, according to the commandment of David and of Solomon his son. For in the days of David and Asaph of old there were chief of the singers and songs of praise and thanksgiving unto God. Notes. Well, as I stated before, music and singing for the glory of God constitutes one of the highest forms of worship. Okay? When a church is in tune with the Lord, singing and music will always be, or it should be, the end result. They should all be happy and singing and praising God. And consequently, it's pretty obvious that the book of Psalms is completely dedicated to singing, and that shows you just how much importance that God actually puts on such. Largest book in the Bible, and by far. Verse 47. And all Israel in the days of Zerubbabel and in the days of Nehemiah gave the portions of the singers and the porters every day his portion, and they sanctified holy things unto the Levites. And the Levites sanctified them unto the children of Aaron. Notes. Well, the words in verse 44, Judah rejoiced for the priests and for the Levites who waited, this means that Judah gave with joy the tithes for the priests, etc. The words in verse 47, they sanctified for the Levites and the Levites sanctified for the sons of Aaron, this means that people gave tithes for the Levites, and the Levites in their turn gave a tithe of these tithes to the priests. Numbers chapter 18 gives you a little information, but in other words, a tenth of the income and whatever other things they had was given to this and that certain person, and this and that certain person chopped it up into a tenth, and they just kind of passed it on. Chapter 13 now. On that day they read in the book of Moses in the audience of the people, and therein was found written that the Ammonite and the Moabite should not come into the congregation of God forever. Notes. That's found in Deuteronomy chapter 31, verses 11 through 12, 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 2, and even later on in Isaiah chapter 34. Here's the reason. Verse 2. Because they met not the children of Israel with bread and with water, but hired Balaam against them, that he should curse them, and howbeit our God turned the curse into a blessing. Notes. You can find this in Numbers chapter 22, verse 5, Numbers chapter 23, verse 11, and chapter 24, verse 10. You can also find it in Deuteronomy 23 and Joshua 24, verses 9 through 10. This is something that really ticked God off, and it caused him to kind of roll his sleeves up a little bit on them. Okay? He had to get down to business. And sadly, Balaam, I do very strongly believe that Balaam died lost. Verse 3. Now it came to pass, when they had heard the law, that they separated from Israel all the mixed multitude. Notes. Well, this was kind of sad and a bit disturbing, but on reaching Deuteronomy chapter 23, in the course of the public reading of the Scriptures, the returned captives directly, they heard the command of verses 3 through 6, and they obeyed it. You see, the mixed multitude had always been a snare, okay? Numbers chapter 11 documents that, and it was a snare to the Israel and God under the first covenant. And this snare remains to the present day under the second covenant, okay? The problem here isn't really with the people, but the mixed ideas and the mixed religion and people trying to pull them away from God, and that's exactly what Satan wanted, okay? And on top of that, not to give anybody any bad ideas, but it caused a polluted seed line, okay? And for the Jewish people, they were the only ones that had to really separate themselves for that. Why? Because Jesus was going to be a pure Jewish person, okay? Having a perfect seed line. Well, if you have people coming in and corrupting that, then it's impossible for Christ to come through that. So God kind of got ticked off over it. Verse 4. And before this, Eliashib the priest, having the oversight of the chambers of the house of our God, was allied unto Tobiah. And he had prepared for him a great chamber, where aforetime they laid the meat offerings, the frankincense, and the vessels, and the tithes of the corn, the new wine, and the oil, which was commanded to be given to the Levites and the singers, and the porters, and the offerings of the priests. Notes. Well, this great chamber was like a little building, I guess, connected to the temple. Okay, and the description of what was going on is found right there in verse 5. But Tobiah was an Ammonite. This ruling concerning the Ammonite could be relaxed, that is, if they became a proselyte Jew, as Ruth actually did, okay? But to be sure, Tobiah definitely did not fit that bill. And yet the high priest had formed a close association with him, even giving him a chamber connected with the temple. Well, in the first place, the high priest, or any Israelite for that matter, should not have desired to have anything to do with this Ammonite, who had tried extremely so to hurt the very work of God. And such should be shunned in the modern church as well. Verse 6, But in all this time was not I at Jerusalem, for in the 32nd year of Artaxerxes, king of Babylon, came I unto the king, and after certain days obtained I leave of the king. Notes. Now, we're talking about after the dedication of the wall, Nehemiah returned to the Persian court. But after some time, possibly 2 years, he obtained leave of absence and returned to Jerusalem, because it may be assumed he had heard of the faithfulness, or actually I should say the faithlessness of the high priest and the nobles of the covenant to which they had subscribed. Just look back at chapter 10, okay? We'll have to pick up in chapter 13, verse 7 of the book of Nehemiah. Thank you, and God bless. I hope you're being blessed. Bye-bye.